After working with over 3,000 entrepreneurs, one of the biggest problems besides messaging that I see is how to build a team. And I see people run into problems and it feels like they're always having to hire virtual assistants, or it feels like they have to micromanage the virtual assistant, or they bring someone on to free up time and it just causes them more headaches than it's worth. And they don't know how to build an actual team or to find the unicorns, the people that are very highly skilled, don't need to be micromanaged, and actually thrive because you put them in their zone of genius and they improve the business. And so today, what I wanted to do is bring on a special guest to walk you through a process for you to be able to take and use to hire your first unicorn or multiple unicorn virtual assistants and build out a rock star team. If that's interesting to you, keep on listening.
Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today is going to be a super fun, tangible, right to the point episode. I know last week we had a long one. We had a big boy. We had a big episode drop. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Love to hear your feedback. You guys can always send me messages on Instagram or DMs on your feedback or lessons that you learned. And also, I absolutely love hearing and reading all those. But today we're going to talk about actually a pretty big topic. And I have a guest coming on to the podcast today. And today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about, well, you know what, let me do the introduction first and then we'll go there. And so, today I actually asked one of our students to come on to the podcast, because I've been working with her in a group and a little bit of one-on-one setting. And I'm just like, okay, you are a master at this stuff. I need you to come on the podcast, teach the audience what you're doing. And so today we have Sailynn, who is your fun business coach who specializes in helping entrepreneurs avoid burnout or get rid of burnout by building really effective virtual assistant teams. So if you're looking for that unicorn virtual assistant who's full of talent, doesn't need to be micromanaged, and you don't have to come in and correct their work, well, then this episode is going to be huge for you. So, Sailynn, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I know I just gave you an introduction and sort of gave an overview of what it is that you do, but I would just love to hear from you and your perspective on what is it that you do and who do you work with?
Yeah, so I am your fun business coach because I do believe that you can build a business and have fun at the same time, even though it might not seem like it at times. But back in the day, I started my entrepreneurial journey 17 years ago, and I spent the first 3 years in business working 80+ hour weeks to reach the $1 million level. But I realized at that time that I was completely burnt out. And so after meeting with a business coach, he gave me a couple things that I needed to fix. And one of them was my team. And once I got the right people in the right seats, in my business, it was like magically overnight things started to change. And so after selling that business and moving into the online coaching space, I really realized that nowadays you can build amazing teams with virtual assistants. And you can truly find those unicorns. Now, people might be like, what the heck is a unicorn VA? And it's really like those A players. As you said, it's those people that don't need to be micromanaged. They show up, they're reliable, they get the job done, they answer their messages. And when you can find those unicorn virtual assistants, like your entire business will change and you're going to be like, why didn't I do this sooner?
Yeah, I know I've had that experience, and I've also had my fair share of virtual assistants when it first started out that it just felt like it was more of a burden than a help. And I'm just like so confused on how am I supposed to do this? How, everyone always says that you need to have a team and the business should run even if you're away. And I was always just so confused on how that happened because I was just hiring people that just never got the job done. In fact, I was hiring virtual assistants I was paying full time, but they had like 3 or 4 different people they were working for. And it was just it wasn't great. And I think a lot of people are sort of falling into that that experience. And I know in the past you have built a business into the multi-millions and used delegation and team building in order to make that happen. But I know a lot of people don't have that experience. So I guess my first question to you is why is it that some people have that experience that I had when I first started out and some people don't? Like, what is causing and creating the experience where you like hire someone, they look good on paper and they just don't pan out?
Yeah, I think the big thing right now that I'm seeing is I have a reel going up that you'll be able to see. And it's kind of like a funny, but it basically says that they're using the EMMM method. And what that is it's like eeny, meeny, miny, mo, which one should I pick kind of deal.
Yeah.
And it's because we're so busy, right? And we're just looking for a solution. And we just think that the person has 5-star reviews on Fiverr or Upwork, and so they must be good. And if I just hand them over everything that I don't want to deal with or that's, bogging me down, then they should just be able to do it. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. Like, you can find a unicorn virtual assistant, but they are not miracle workers. They're human beings, and you really need to figure out the first thing that really it is what you want them to do, right? I mean, that's a big step, is you really want to figure out what will make that big impact in your business.
Okay. And then how do you start to do that? Because, for me, I look at a lot of entrepreneurs and sometimes they don't know who to hire first. Number one, but number two, even when they think they know who to hire first, it's actually not the right person. So what do you look at to determine if and who or what you need to hire for? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So I walk my clients through an exercise that helps them determine what are the best things to outsource. And it's all about knowing what's in your zone of genius, right? So what are the things that you're naturally good at? And then what are the things that you love to do? And then everything outside of that is the things that you want to delegate. And one of the most common mistakes that I see women make is they hire people like themselves. Well, if you're hiring someone like yourself, then most likely that person's going to like to do what you like to do. And then now you have two people doing your job instead of someone doing the stuff that you don't like to do or that's outside of your zone of genius. So you really have to figure out all the things that you do, which is so overwhelming as an entrepreneur, and then really figure out which things you would love to keep because you're good at them and you love doing them. And what are all those other things? And then what I love to dial in on is help women figure out really what's going to be more profitable in your business. So for instance, if you're doing something outside of your zone of genius, most likely it's going to take you longer because you hate doing it or because you're not good at it. So if it's going to take you 5 hours to do a task, right? And let's say the average person is making $100 an hour. I know it's very hard to put a price on your time, but you can get a VA at $10 an hour to do it. And even if it takes them 5 hours, which it shouldn't, if they're a specialist in that area, like an expert, you're saving so much more money. And so you want to look at those things and say, okay, what would be that big impact if I got these 5 hours off my schedule and I gave it to someone else and it was $500 of my time versus $50, on the bottom line.
Yeah. And I know when you started answering this question, you said, here's what I see women do. I just want to be clear because I know you work with women. So it's probably this way you speak. But if you're a man and listening to this episode, I shouldn't have to say this, but this also applies to you if you have a business. Okay. So
yes.
just want to say that.
Yes, it pretty much applies to anyone, but yes.
Yeah, but I would agree because I see people all the time. They're like, well, I think they first look at what is taking the most amount of my time and let me just delegate that. But I agree with you is that we have to look at the profitability of the things too, because, if if you're spending 20 hours a week on social media and it's not actually leading to leads or sales, you may not need a virtual assistant for that because it's not leading to sales or revenue. And there might be something else where the sales and revenue are coming from. And so delegating those like profitable tasks first are always going to be something that's better. And then if it frees you up more hours to work on things that also move the needle, then that's where the focus should be. And so do you have any sort of like common practices or areas, like top 3, top 4 areas that you see are usually where people need to start first when it comes to virtual assistants and building out a team?
You mean what they should delegate first?
Yeah. So, I know like when we have our students messaging wise, and they're looking at their messaging, I've found patterns over time of like where we need to, what parts of messaging do we need to dive into first for most people? So I'm just wondering, delegation wise, when you work with people, are there commonalities or patterns, or is it just literally depending on the person in the situation?
I think so. I'm a big believer in building a business that meets your unique dreams and goals. And because everyone has different dreams and goals, right? And so I think that the most common thing is just what you said. People want to delegate social media off their plate because either it's a time suck or they hate it, or they don't do it at all because they hate it so much and they can't be consistent. But as you said, when you're adding anyone to your team, whether it be a virtual assistant or an employee or whoever, you should be adding someone that's actually going to make you more money. So back in my franchise days, when I was looking to add on a team member and I had part-time team members, my theory was always, okay, if I'm going to add someone on within 90 days, I want them to be making me a certain amount more than what their salary is costing me. Because that's the whole point of growing a team, is not only to get your time back, but to also grow your business. And I can tell you firsthand, like when I got the right people in the right seats and I had the systems for them in the business, I went from those 80-hour work weeks that I mentioned to just 16. And the less I worked, the more money I made. I was able to like triple my business revenue and 4x my personal paycheck, because when I was hiring people in the business, I was hiring, first of all, experts, right? So they weren't generalists that could do everything. And my intention with hiring them was it was something that I wanted to delegate that was going to make me money. And it's the same thing for virtual assistants. So as you said, social media might be something that you want off your plate, but if you're not making any money on social media, maybe it would be better to delegate sales or something that's going to actually make you money and you're going to see a quicker return on your investment. Because I think one of the things that people face is, how do I justify the cost of a VA if I don't see direct results, right?
Good. Or it could mean let's fix the content and the social media so that it is profitable, then delegate it. But I think sometimes, I see this mistake too, is I think sometimes people will hire the virtual assistant or the specialist, as you say it, or as you call it, and they make it the responsibility of them to fix the problem as well. And sometimes that leads to issues too. And so, there's a whole heap of different things that could be going wrong in that situation. But you did mention the generalist versus the specialist. And I do want to sort of dive into that a little bit, because that was a mistake we made when building out our team, especially in the beginning. And all I could afford were virtual assistants. Is I tried to cut corners, or I didn't even look at it as cutting corners, but that's what it was doing. Or to save money by going like, well, I can hire one person who can like post on social media and then also help me create this social media. But then they're going to like schedule the emails too. And they're going to do this other stuff. And then everything just sort of unravels and falls apart. So can you explain a little bit why that doesn't work? And then how do we, what's the biggest difference between the generalist and the specialist?
Yeah. So I don't necessarily see it most as, money, I think it's time, right? Because when we think about adding team members to our business, we know that it's going to, take up some time. That's what we think, right? That's what we think is going to happen because we're going to have to like lead them and, step up and all this kind of stuff. And so we think, well, if we can get just one person, then I only have one person to manage. And so they hire a generalist. So that's the person that does exactly what you said. They post your social media, they write your emails, they answer your customer service emails, they, kind of do everything and anything for you, but they're like the handyman, right? They are good at a lot of things, but they're not great at anything. And so when I'm hiring a virtual assistant and they send me a list of everything that they can do for me, I reply back to them and I'm like, this is fabulous. Thanks so much for sharing. But tell me what like really lights you up. Like, what is your superpower in this skill set list? And let me know. And all of them usually come back, or the unicorns really come back and say, here's the one thing that I love to do. And so I have a list of potential virtual assistants that I would want to work with in the future. And I highlight that one thing because when you get a team member that loves what they do every single day, they're going to stay with you long term as long as you keep them in that role and keep them thriving. And that's what's so important, because if you get a generalist, they're just going to be doing all kinds of duties and probably 80% of them they're going to hate. But when you get a specialist that says, oh my gosh, I love to be a customer service rep because I love having conversations with people. I love problem solving. I love making people happy, right? Then that person is going to be probably the best customer service person you've ever hired because they're in their zone of genius. So that's the difference between the two.
And that makes sense. Like, if you want someone to thrive inside of your company, find the role that they thrive in, where they're passionate about. And I think I heard the saying from James Wedmore, but he said something along the lines of like, if a flower doesn't grow, we don't blame the flower. We blame the environment in which the flower is existing. And I think what I hear you saying, well, not I think, what I hear you saying is that, we have to find the environment in which the virtual assistant is going to thrive in. And if the role that you need isn't the environment they're going to thrive in, probably not going to be the best match for you. And then also if you find a flower that's like, I like all of these environments, you're like, no, you don't. Like, what's your favorite? And so is that more or less like step one of being able to find that perfect person?
Yeah, I think it's like anything in life, right? When you do something that you absolutely love every day, in and out, it's that you're working on your passion. You're doing the things you love, and that person's going to thrive in your business because you have set them up to succeed. And they're only going to help you grow because they love their job. They love your business because you're going to treat them amazing. And then you can find someone that is in the same situation in their zone of genius in another part of your business. And I think that's the gold in virtual assistants nowadays. Like back in the day when I was building my franchise, 2007, my franchisor said, you should hire full-timers. And I right out the gate, bucked the system and started hiring part-timers. And so I have been putting part-time people in their zones of genius for 17 years now. And that's how come I was able to, build a business where I could travel and I only work 16 hours a week, is because all these people loved what they did and they were so happy in their environment that they were grateful, and so they gave my business everything they possibly could.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a very hard thing to do and to build, which is getting a team that like wants to see it successful just as much as you do. Because I think it's almost impossible to have every employee get to that level. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I think there's always going to be the employee who shows up for the paycheck. And usually those employees just don't last forever, but the people that really are in the right role, the right environment, they're, they stick around for a while, like years. I think everyone on our team, the core people, have been here for a minimum of 3 years, maybe longer. Some of them up to like six or seven. And that's one of the things that we've been really good at, is where do we move these people based on where they want? And my mind automatically goes to Brittany on our team, because she came on when we had it was an agency, and she was posting other people's social media, and she didn't really care for it. And then as different roles sort of opened up, we eventually found a place where she's like, yeah, I like this. This is fun. And she's been, happy and thriving and growing within that role. And so I think that's a hidden key that most people don't really pay attention to.
Well, and a lot of that is having open communications. Ultimately we're all humans, right? And we all want to be treated the same way that you would treat someone else, right? And so it's that golden rule. And so I've always tried to treat all of my team members with respect and have open communication with them. And so when I bring someone on with the team, I'm like, listen, if there's something that we need to modify, or if you want to grow or try this out, like, let's have that conversation. And that's how people stay with you. And then when you see where, your flower analogy of where they're blooming, you can move them into different roles in the business. And if you support them with training and, personal and professional development, then they will grow with your business. And I do believe that you can build a team of unicorns, A players, because you get to know like what to look for in people, and really get to dig in the more people that you hire. And so if you have been an entrepreneur that's really struggled or had some bad hires in the past, like, don't let that keep you, that fear, or those bad feelings keep you from trying again, because with guidance, you can really get some amazing people to help you grow your business. And if you don't have a team, you can't grow. It's just flat out.
No, I remember when I first got started, I was like, that's such BS. You can build a team by yourself. And like, I'm just going to work really hard and get it all done and prove everyone wrong. And then it got to a point where I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. That's so exhausting.
Well, that's good for you, because I was the opposite. I'm like, I'm not a workaholic and I don't want to work. So I was like, what can I delegate? When I actually was buying my franchise, they made us reach out to owners before we bought. And one of them was the owner of the Rhode Island office. And he said to me, his biggest piece of advice was delegate everything that you're not good at or that you don't want to do. And I really took that to heart, and I delegated everything out to the point that I would come home from vacation or wherever. My team would be like, why are you here? Like, we don't need you. And I'd be like,
great.
Oh, okay.
Well, how do we get to that point? Because right now we have the first thing you look at is sort of like the passion, the purpose, and what's the environment in which they're going to thrive. How do we find that out? Is it as simple as just like putting an ad and saying, here's what we need, and then interviewing them and asking these questions on an interview? Is that how you handle most of that? What does that process look like?
So nowadays, you really need to have your job description that you put out there really be unique, so you can kind of call those unicorns out of the forest or wherever they're magically running around. And they will self-identify, right? So you talk about self-identifying in messaging, and it's the same thing, right? Like when you put a ad out there and it really speaks to someone, then you are going to have those people reach out to you, and you're going to feel that passion in there. So for instance, I'll tell you a little example. In my franchise business, I was searching for a new salesperson, which was the hardest position to hire for. And I put an ad out there, and back then I would get 200 to 400 applications. And this woman called me and said, I reviewed the job description and I want to tell you I am the perfect person. I love everything you wrote about your company, your mission, and this position is exactly where I want in my career. And so I pulled her from the pack. I brought her in, had those job interview conversations with her to confirm she was the one. And I did end up hiring her. And she generated my business millions of dollars because she truly was a unicorn. So when you have a job description that really pulls in with the messaging, what your brand in your business like exudes, like if you're a fun business or if you're a more professional business and you need that, or if it's like an industry specific business, like call out your person that aligns with your brand vibe, then those people will self-identify and come to you. And then you can have those conversations to confirm that this is, a pool of candidates that you can choose from.
Okay. So, like if we're going to put that description in there, is it as simple as just being very specific on what the company's like and the culture's like, or are you intentional with putting different values in there as well? Like, are there certain indicators or unique language that you might want to use in the description to make it feel like, cool, I'm calling this person out, speaking directly to them? Is there a process that you would follow for that?
So I like to ask them in the job description to describe to me what their, superpower is. Like, just like we were talking about prior, is it's like, what is your zone of genius? Like, tell me what your superpower is in your application, because then you're going to see firsthand, like, okay, this person can do all of social media, but what they're really amazing at is like, in the DMs, once your social media is up, it's turning those conversations into leads and sales, right? And if that's what you really want, because that's the process you really need, then that's your person to talk to first. So when you ask them to brag to you about what they really love to do, what's their superpower, it really calls out, it gives the unicorn virtual assistants an opportunity to tell you what it is they want. And it weeds out all the other people, because those are the people that used AI on their resume, or the people that basically skimmed it and just gave you something generic. And so you're going to clearly see the difference.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense too, because you can rate. So sometimes we'll get job applications and it's like, there's 200 of them. I'm like, oh my God. But if you look at the people that are just taking the time to actually put a little bit of effort in, you can probably cut 70% of the crap out. And again, it's like, it just shows the values of them. It's like, I'm going to put quality work in. I'm going to take the time. Versus like, I'm just going to do a numbers game and put a little up, throw them all out there. And it's like fishing, And so it's just going to see fishing with a million fishing poles. And I know we'll catch one, and you want to eliminate all of those.
Yeah. And that person is looking for that. We'll call them dud virtual assistant, is looking for the busy entrepreneur that doesn't have the time to catch that bad generic resume just so they can get a job. And those are the bad hires, right? Those are the ones that get through the crack, and they probably start off okay. I've hired a bunch of them myself, and they start off okay. And then you start to see the indicators, right? They're ghosting you, or that video quality for the editing was really good at first, but now you're finding spelling mistakes and, things aren't right. And then it just seems to get worse and worse. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. It's like they know what they need to do to get the job. And then they know what they need to do to make a good first impression. And then it starts to slip. And they probably know, okay, well, this person's going to like give me some extra chances and try to work with me on it because I was good at one point. And then I'll sit here for 2 months and then I'll move on to the next thing. And I've had that experience where that happens. And it's so frustrating because you're like, okay, great. Not only did I just waste a bunch of time training this, but it's also just money and opportunity costs. They're just down the drain. And so, would you agree that a lot of people fall into that because they are so burnt out and busy that they just kind of just, I'll hire this one, and let's just, like, is that sort of the approach they're taking?
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, right? We live in a world nowadays where we're all looking for that next tip, hack, secret. And we're just looking for that Band-Aid fix because we're so busy. We're overwhelmed. We're working 50 plus hour weeks, nights, weekends, holidays. And we just want someone to come in and do the work that we can't do at the moment. And so you get that random email in your inbox from that VA that's like, hey, I noticed your video on YouTube is not ranking as high as you want. And you say to yourself, oh my gosh, like he sees me. And then you're like, and he says, I can solve your problem. And you're like, okay, great, here you go. And it sounds good at first, but if you don't do the pre-work, then you're going to have problems. And at first it's going to seem good, right? Because you're like, I'm taking this from my plate and I'm putting it on his plate. So it seems like an instant fix, but you realize pretty quickly that things aren't going and you're actually putting in more time and money and effort. And the US Department of Labor is still saying a bad hire costs about 30% of a salary. And I think it's the same thing with virtual assistants, right? No matter where they live in the world, if you hire someone for 90 days, you can take 30 of those days and basically just throw that money, time, and energy in the trash because it's wasted.
That's crazy. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize the numbers were that big. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm understanding correctly, the first step is we have to create that job description that pulls out the unicorns, pulls out the quality. And if we're going to take the time to craft a really great, intentional, almost filter of a job application, then we have to look at the quality of the application coming in, step number 2. And you can tell right off the bat, and there are indicators, I'm sure this is something you teach people and stuff like that as well, of what are the things to look into an application that actually will identify this person could potentially be a unicorn and this one could not. And then number 4, or the next step after that, is really understand when you talk to them and stuff like that, is the thing that you need really something that they're passionate about, purposeful? Is it their secret weapon? Is it their zone of genius, so to speak? So after that, what do we do?
After that, we want to make them a clear offer that is truly mutually beneficial. And this is where I just want to make it clear to all of your listeners. Virtual assistants are human beings, right? And just because they're not sitting in front of you, they are not AI robots. They are humans with lives and families and all of those different kinds of things. And so you want to make them a mutually beneficial offer that is not only going to serve you and your needs and your business and help you grow, but it's also going to work for them. And one of the things that I've learned in business is not everyone is motivated by money, right? Some people are, but some people, it could be that they need flexibility. So maybe the virtual assistant that you need them to be on, a webinar with you every single week. And that's not something they can do because maybe they're taking care of their kids at that time, right? So you need to clarify those things. Other virtual assistants are really intent on having a set amount of hours every week that they can rely on. So one of the conversation questions that you really want to dive into when you're talking to them is, what is that thing that's most important to them that's going to motivate them to make sure that in that offer that it's not only going to work for you, but it's going to work for them. Because otherwise, pretty quickly, they will start to resent you, and you'll just have problems.
Yeah. And I can imagine the problems would probably be, it's twofold. It's one, you might find the perfect person, but just because you make an offer doesn't mean they're going to say yes. And so we have to be able, and honestly, if they're really that great, they're probably going to be getting multiple offers around the same time that you're hiring them. So we need them to say yes. But number 2 is, I would imagine that unicorns and really great virtual assistants know that they're unicorns and really great virtual assistants. And if they're not being treated fairly, or the environment or the culture's off, or they're not listened to or heard, or things are more of a clusterfuck than they thought, they'll probably end up leaving. So we need to make sure that the offer supports the life and the values that they have.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is, true unicorns know that they're unicorns. Like, you're a unicorn entrepreneur, right? You took the leap to become an entrepreneur and you're special. And it's the same thing with virtual assistants. Like, the ones that are really amazing, they know they're amazing. And that's the ones that are going to say, like, I have boundaries, and they're not going to put up with that. And so a lot of entrepreneurs have probably already had a unicorn maybe in their experience, but they didn't have what they needed behind the scenes in order, as you said, to like have them flourish in the environment.
Yeah. And that's the same thing too, is like, even for me, and it's the same thing for you as the listener. I mean, the second the business feels like a burden or it's impeding on your highest values or things like that, there's going to be a form. That's where I would understand. I think where burnout and resentment and things like start to come into the picture. And like you said, boundaries are really great and things like that to put in place as the business owner. But it's the same experience. It's like, you're experiencing it. They're going to experience it too. If there's a mismatch of values and culture and these sort of things where, like Sailynn said, it's not just about the money. Sometimes time and flexibility and being able to take time off when they want and all this stuff is way more valuable than making an extra couple bucks an hour or $1 an hour or whatever it comes out to be. A clear offer is really important. And when making an offer, I'm assuming the offer will change from person to person to person, right? Based on how the interview is. Okay.
And it should change. It should be unique to that person and that role. And you got to remember, virtual assistants are entrepreneurs, right? So they're running their own business. And so I mean, I've had this happen to me is back in the day when I started hiring more remote employees and it was like, okay, they knew that through conversations with me that my business was not a good fit and had actually turned down my offer. And, I was like, shocked at first, but it good for them to say like, no, this isn't going to work, right? They saw that future. And so that helps you understand that when you find that unicorn, they're going to do their best to make sure that what their services are that they're going to provide you align with what you really need. And so when you can have those great conversations with them and make that beautiful offer, it's going to be a great working relationship for both of you.
I love that. Yeah. Because I think it's so easy just because of human nature to do like, create and offer something that we think is great. Like, I would have found value in this, or I think this is awesome, or I'm paying them so much money. And it's like, but how do you know that's what they want? And it's the same thing with any relationship, romantic relationships, with your kids, with your friends. If you come at everything of like, well, this is what I like, they're going to like it too. I'm going to give a gift because I think this is cool. It's like, that's not a great way to give gifts, right? It's not about you. It's about the other person and understanding them and what they need.
Exactly. And so back in the day, my franchisor always said, put your team on some sort of commission or the whole team. And I listened to them for a while. And then I realized in having open communication with them that not everyone was motivated by money. That unicorn that I mentioned to you that generated me millions of dollars in my business, she wanted 30 days off to go climb Mount Everest. Yeah. And I was like, okay. I was like, you work your butt off to the day you leave, and the day you come back, you start work again. And she was like, okay. Yeah. That was what was important to her. And so when you really have conversations and you figure that out, and I like to just be honest, with people and just say, tell me what it is you really want. You know what I mean? Like, what's going to make you happy? What's going to have you excited to do these tasks every single day? Like, just be honest with me, and that just starts the relationship off on a really positive note. And it also allows them an open door to give you feedback throughout your relationship as, a team member.
Yeah. And I think it really gives you an edge too, because, like our business does well, but at the same time, like James, my buddy James, his business will do way more money than us. And then I look at like Google, who does like unfathomable more money than us. And so they can offer just bigger salaries to their people. But we've also had people who've been around for a really long time. And I think sometimes when you can understand really what's important to your team and what they want, it sort of gives you an edge to find talent comparable to someone who can offer those higher salaries. And so one of the things that we have inside of our company is unlimited time off. Just don't abuse it. But you need a day off. You don't even need to ask for it. Just take it. And as long as KPIs are being hit, I don't really care that much. And so it gives our team sort of that freedom and feeling of being an entrepreneur without the risk of being an entrepreneur, because they have the time and the flexibility and this and that. And I find that really gives us an edge to hold on to talent when, I can't match the salary of some of these like bigger companies just because we just literally don't have the funds to do it. And so it gives you an edge to sort of pull that talent in. So I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I always had a reputation back in the day in my franchise of I was really hard to work for because I was in senior home care. We ran 24/7. And so my expectation was always just, we got to get the job done. Right. And so high expectations, but I also had the same reputation that it was an amazing place to work because same thing, as long as we got it done, I don't care. Go to your kid's soccer game, go to the doctor's appointment, do what you got to do, like go climb Mount Everest. Like it did not matter to me as long as we got the job done. And that's how you really compete. And in the online world, so for your audience, I will tell you that virtual assistants do talk. And a lot of them know each other in the same world. And so you need to be really aware that you could start getting a reputation in the VA world behind the scenes that you don't even realize if you're hiring people and not treating them well, or you have a spike in business and you hire them and then you have to let them go. So they do talk behind the scenes. A lot of them do know each other. And so you really want to remember that as you're hiring and treat them good. And, business does fluctuate, but again, open communication is what really, really helps you build an amazing team that'll be there with you and help you grow to unbelievable levels like you can't even imagine.
Yeah, I love that. I know the next step or the next question that people are probably asking, which is like, okay, I can see that what the hiring process looks like now, but how do we get them once they're hired to come on the team and be able to understand what they need to do and the quality? And I know a lot of people, when they get to the point of almost burnout, they're like, I don't have and everyone always hears and knows, okay, we need to create a system and a process. It's almost like a buzzword at this point. And people look at that and they go like, well, I don't have the time. I don't have the time to create a system and a process. I don't have the time to train them. How do you respond to that? And what is that process? What should it look like once you hire them?
Yeah. So the world has totally changed, right? Like back when I started in 2007, everything was so manual. And you needed that like binder. Like I had binders. Who has binders now? Everything's digital. And so you just want to keep it simple, right? And so the simplest thing to do that I teach people to do is just, if you're doing the task right now yourself, record your screen, whether that's recording your cell phone as you're posting on social media, whether that's recording your screen on Zoom when you're returning customer service inquiries. Just keep it as simple as possible, because when you do the prior steps really well and you find that unicorn, they're not going to need a whole lot of training. They're just going to need some basic information like who's your business, but you probably already had that conversation during the job interview. Who do you serve? You probably already talked to them about that. And then just simple stuff for remote workers, right? Usernames, passwords, links. That's about it. And so keep it simple. Don't overwhelm them. I think you're exactly right. So many people nowadays think that they need to have all their crap perfectly perfect behind the scenes with SOPs and processes and systems and all of that. And that's honestly overwhelming because you're going to be paying someone to learn all that stuff that they probably don't need right away. Because with virtual assistants, a lot of people hire people for 5 hours a week. You're going to be the person who's taking my content and posting it on social media. You don't need to know, all kinds of other stuff. You just need to know where's the content, what's the schedule for posting, and where do we post it, period.
Yeah. And I think when you get so detailed into SOPs and things like that, it creates almost this rigidity with I got to follow this and I got to do that. And it sometimes eliminates creativity. But also what I find too is you may have the most detailed SOP in the world, but then a week later it changes and then people don't end up following it anyways, or they're like, I found a faster and a better way. And so I don't know, you tell me if this is a bad idea, but what I find works really well is if you're about to hire someone and you're doing the task yourself, which is probably why you're hiring someone, something as simple and as easy as recording a screen flow or just recording the steps with voice and here, do this, sometimes is enough to be able to get them to understand. And then I don't know. One of the things I like to do is I like to tell people you can't make a mistake inside this company because that means you're trying and that means you're testing. And I want to leave room for innovation as well. So it's here's what needs to happen. Here's the KPI that we're going to use to measure if it's working or not, or you're getting the job done or not. But then, if you find a better, easier way, then do that. And then we can re-record that one day while you're doing it. And it's boom, system is done. Process is done. Structure is done. There's room for growth and flexibility there. Is that more or less kind of would you agree with that is a good way of doing it or not really? If that's a terrible way of doing it, you can tell me. It won't hurt my feelings.
I definitely think that in this day and age, and especially as growing entrepreneurs, we need to be flexible, right? And we want to give them the basic fundamentals of what they're going to do in their job, but let them express their creativity. And one of the things that I see so much in entrepreneurs who are burnt out is, I help them implement systems and that kind of stuff is they're okay, here's my system. Oh, I did that 3 years ago. And that's so out of date. And so when you're ready to hire a virtual assistant and like you said, and you're doing that task, just record your screen and then drop it in a folder that says VA with a subfolder that says social media and done. And really give people the flexibility to, remember you're hiring someone outside of your zone of genius. So give them the basics of your brand and what's important to you, right? And then let them be the expert in their role and take that to the next level and let them shine. You found your unicorn, you hired your unicorn. Now it's time for them to shine in their role. And you're right. There are no mistakes in business. I worked in healthcare for 10 years and I used to say, as long as no one's dying or getting hurt, we're doing okay, right? The world's not going to end. And so you make a mistake, you fix it. No one's going to die. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. I think when mistakes become problems is when they're the same mistake is over and over again. But if that's not happening, cool, lesson was learned. They're getting better. They're getting stronger. They're getting more efficient now.
Well, and if the mistakes are happening 3+ times, that's on you as a leader to really say, okay, what are they missing, right? Is there something that I could support them better with, right? Maybe they need something. And that's an opportunity again to have an open conversation with them. And it could just be a miscommunication thing. But I really love to hire experts in their zone of genius and let them shine. And they should do the task ultimately better than you because it's in their zone of genius, not yours.
Yeah. And I've seen that, especially with our video editors, because I used to edit all my own YouTube videos and things like that until it just took me way too long to make a video. But then they would do it better and faster. And I'm I don't know how it's physically fast. I don't to move that fast and make something that good. I don't know how that's effing possible because I've done it myself. And it's well, they're just talented. It's like with me with messaging. I just like get it, see it, blah, 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 and I can just create messaging a lot faster than other people. And so when you can tap into that and you bring that into your business, it's so powerful because it's really like having 5 of you really operating at the same time, but it's not even 5 of you. It's 5 people who are equally as good as what you do, but in their own department. And that's powerful. That's really powerful when building a team.
Yeah. And next level. So when you get to that point where you have those people and those experts, that next level is letting go, right? And that's when your business is going to grow to unbelievable heights without you working 50 hours. You're going to actually start working less and less and less because you're going to trust that they're going to do their job because they're dependable. They're taking the initiative. They're fixing things before you even realize they're broken. And when you build that team, your business is just magic things are going to happen. And it's because you got the right people in the right seats. And so it's not a complicated process. It's really just about communication, right? Ultimately, that's what it comes down to is calling out those people, bringing them in, having those conversations, realizing they're people and making them an offer that works for both of you. And then just setting them up to succeed by giving them the basics of what you want them to do and then letting them shine and show you what else they can do.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember one day, and I know I mentioned him a couple times on this podcast episode, but James, I remember one time this was years ago. I was asking him about his team and he goes, it's just amazing because we have 2 things running at the same exact time. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, we have this one promotion going on the front end to our students, and the exact same time, the other part of the team is running this other promotion on the back end to these other students, two simultaneous things like just running that are going after different people. And he's like, just imagine being able to launch, but you're running 2 launches at the same time. And you as a business owner, it takes you the same amount of effort. I'm like, dang, that's really cool. And we are at that place where we do have that now, but that's the power of the team. And you get like this multiplier effect going on. So not only do you get your time back, you're not burnt out, but you have a multiplier of output inside the company as well. And it's just a powerful place. It's a really powerful place to be.
It really is. And virtual assistants, like I said, if you've had a bad experience in the past, don't let hold you back from trying again. And if you have never hired one before and you're not really sure how they're going to work in your business, please know that there is someone that can meet your needs out there. No matter how much of a perfectionist you are or you think your industry is unique, there is someone out there who can meet those needs. It's a wide open ocean.
100%. And I know, hopefully I'm not, saying something I shouldn't say, but I know you have courses and programs that help people through the process of finding them, hiring them, onboarding them. But you also have this really cool thing that you call your pink book, which is you've already done that. You've already done the vetting process, the interview process for virtual assistants and almost every single thing possible, like a book full of unicorns already. And I know you have a bunch of free trainings and free resources. So if people want to learn more about you and how you can help them do this, where's the best place for them to go?
Sure. So they can go to my website at www.passionpurposeposture.com. And to watch the free webinar, it's /VA. Super simple. But yeah, what I realized is that a lot of people just want that quick solution. And if we can fast track their results with my coveted little pink book, remember back in the day, we all had a little black book, right? And now it's an electronic pink book. Then it really helps entrepreneurs get the help that they need quicker, faster, and helps them get out of burnout even faster. And that's ultimately what we need.
I love it. Okay. So let's do the website one more time. It's passion,
purposeposture.com /VA.
Purpose, passion, posture. Purpose,
passion. Here's the outtakes of the podcast.
We just need Sailynnsvas.com. That's our Okay, one more time. I know I just jacked it all up for you, but it's
That's okay, because I know you're going to put it in the notes, right?
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes, but let's do it one more time so everyone knows. What is it?
It is passionpurposeposture.com
/VA. Cool.
You got it.
All right. Well, Sailynn, I appreciate you being here, sharing your knowledge with us, helping out the audience. Guys, if you have any questions around how to hire, find, bring on virtual assistants, not even just virtual assistants, but unicorn virtual assistants that will stop you, limit you from going into burnout. And if you're in burnout, completely help you get out of it. I cannot recommend Sailynn enough. So Sailynn, thank you for being here. So grateful for the knowledge you shared today. And I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope this really helps your audience. So
I think it will. All right, guys, head over there, check out Sailynn, and tune in next week for another episode. And like always, if you guys enjoyed this podcast, please let me know by leaving a review on iTunes. I love reading them. And I'll see you all next week. Take care.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested. And thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.